Howdy, Jarls. Alright, I was an old main back in the day, and he was my favorite hero, and I'm not gonna lie, Jarl's really pulling at my heartstrings, so I think I'm probably gonna be having a main hero again. I'm excited for that, and I want to, just like when I had Iysander as a hero, I want to make a series of videos going over Jarl. So that's deck tags, gameplay, how to plays, just everything concerning Jarl. That is the goal of my videos I want to be sending out. So this first one, we got our equipment, we got our new weapon, and we got the biggest card pool within Flesh and Blood. So we have a ton of decks to brew up. So let's get right into them. I have so many to get to. It's going to be a good sized video, so let's just get right in. Alrighty, let's get into it. As you can see here, we have a ton of Jarl decks to go over. So we're going to just go over each one, show some of the differences, show some of the key cards for each deck, what we were building around, and then we're going to give it a competitive and fun rating. Alright, so let's get started. We'll start with the Chilly Jarl. And the reason why we call it Chilly Jarl is because of Insidious Chill. We are going to be basically building around this card here. We also have Amulet of Ice, which kind of does the exact same thing, actually. And that's what we're building around. It's just showing the Amulet of Ice. So we want a lot of ice fusion. Therefore, we want a lot of ice. And that is what you see. A ton of ice. There is basically no earth to be seen other than the multi-element cards with Crumble and Pulse. We also have some Frostfangs up here to add to our ice. Now, we need a lot of ice, but we also need a lot of ice fusion. So we have our usual suspect of Glacial Footsteps in red and blue, our usual suspect of Oak and Old, but we also are running Snow Under. Snow Under just being a good ice fusion so that we can get our Amulet of Ice and Insidious Chills to pop off. Now the thing to consider when we are fusing is whatever we're fusing, we're going to want to put in the arsenal more than likely. Basically, with Snow Under, you want to pitch a blue, play Snow Under, and then fuse with an ice card. And because you cannot play that ice card afterwards, you're going to want to try to have a good ice card to arsenal. So therefore, all of our ice cards are cards we wouldn't mind seeing in the arsenal. And that's why we have Frostfangs. Having a Frostfang in the arsenal to just kind of wait for a Pummel is really, really good. But even just to play out is not bad either, especially if you have an open zone on your opponent's side, because Frostfang comes in and then they immediately get a Frostbite. But we also are looking to put cards like Polar Blast and Cold Snap in our arsenal so that when we play them, we not only give a Frostbite with Jarl's ability, but we're also drawing a card and having another ability for our opponents to decide to pay one or not into. So that's what we really try to do. Channel Lake Frigid, another not bad arsenal for our ice. But yeah, that's what we're really trying to perform here with this deck, and that is what this deck is built around. We are also running the Odin's Ice Cap. This is just to be a little bit more frosty. It's going to lose a little bit of competitive points. If you wanted to give it a little bit more competitive points, probably Coronet Peaks where you're at, because we are going to be running Summit. So we are going to be having a weapon that costs 6, which sometimes we can't afford, so Coronet Peaks helps us with that. We are going to be running the Tunic because this is a Frostfang Command and Conquer Pummel sort of deck. So Tunic really helps to make that a combo that works very efficiently. And then we don't have enough Earth cards, so we're running Civic Steps. All right, out of the competitive scale, this is probably mildly competitive. It's probably a solid 2.5. I think, honestly, you probably don't need the Amulet of Ice, and like I said, it probably could be a Coronet Peak, and then you're probably getting a little bit more and more competitive. Same with Snow Under. You probably actually don't need that many Ice Fusion. As far as the fun level, obviously this is more opinionated, but I actually think this is really, really fun. I would give this a... it has Frostfangs. It has some ice ability. I'm going to give it a solid 4 out of 5. I think this is actually really fun. So 2.5 out of 5 for competitive and 4 out of 5 for fun. All right, moving on. Next up is Tall Jarl. Yeah, so we're going to go very tall in this deck. We're going to be running our Glacial Footsteps. That's the usual suspect. But now we also have Macho Grande and Pulverize, Spinal Crushes, and Thunderquakes. Yeah, it's tall. We're going super, super tall. So the idea here is block with 2 cards, pitch 2. I guess I'll block with 1 card. Pitch 2 cards, play Glacial Footsteps. That's kind of the idea. We can run a Titan's Fist in this deck because most of our cards that are blue do pitch for 3 or more, or do cost 3 or more. So Titan's Fist works actually very well with this deck. We're not running Tunic because we don't even have a lot of 4 costs. Other than Mangle, everything is kind of on an even curve. Macho Grande, I guess, is a reason why you could be running Tunic. But Tectonic Plane kind of works with that too. So we're going to just be running Tectonic Plane for the extra block value, really. And then it doesn't get blown up. So if we are facing another Jarl and they haven't mangled us, we don't get a Frostbite in our chest region. Civic Steps is obviously because we have no Earth. But yeah, that's where we're at with this deck. Rouse the Ancient works out very well. But this is Jarl, so let's give it some ratings. So, on a competitive scale, I think it's a solid deck. It's probably a little bit too tall. But I do think it's pretty solid. I'd probably give it a 2.5 out of 5 for the competitive scale. And then out of the fun scale, well, again, it's, do you want to swing tall all the time? I do, but I think I get a little bored of it, to be honest. So, I would probably also give it a probably a 2.5 out of 5 for the fun scale too. So obviously, if you like going tall, if you love Pulverize, and I know a lot of y'all do, then this probably gets a little bit more bumps in your own scales rating. All right, moving on. Flourishing Channel. Now this is a weird deck, so this is gonna get a little bit more pushed on the fun scale and a little less on the competitive scale, but let's talk about it. As you can see, we are a little bit more earthy with our equipment and our weapon, and that is because it works out very well here with this deck. One thing that I noticed that a good friend of mine pointed out is that Tectonic Crust actually might be a better piece of equipment here, only because you can block with Well Grounded. It has a 0 block, and it doesn't get destroyed. And so if you put Well Grounded with Tectonic Crust, that's a Seismic Surge every single time. Which is not terrible, not bad. We don't have that many Guardian cards to really work with, but it's just something to consider. It's a little bit of a cheaper option. All right, let's get into the mainstay of the deck. You can see that we're running a lot of Earth decomposed cards, and we are also running a Channel Mal Heroic. Now, I would know what you're thinking, why? And that's a very fair question. Mostly because this card does give a pump. It works pretty well with Barkskin of the Millennium Tree, so that we can get an embodiment to make this block for 4. And sometimes it can just be the pumps that we really want. So let's talk about what the other card of this deck's name is, Flourishing Channel. Let's talk about Flourish. Yeah, so this is part of the Terra Blitz deck that you can get, or Terra First Strike deck. And yeah, next time you would gain any sort of power, you get that much +3. So that means our channel gives us +6. That means Cadaver's Tilling gets +5. E-Strike +5. Felony Crown +7. Oh. As you can see here, everything but Mangle gets a bump, right? Like, even Plow Under gets a bump. I guess Autumn Touch technically doesn't. But then even Rouse the Ancient gets a +10. So Flourish can work very well with these sort of pump type cards. And that's why we have Channel Mal Heroic, because it does actually work very well with Flourish. But again, this is a little bit more on the fun side. Canopy Shelter, another Terra First Strike deck card. Giving us the might, again, just works with the Flourish. That's why we're running it. And that's basically it. All of our cards gives us some sort of plus. That's why we run these type cards. Everything synergizes very, very well with this deck. And whenever a deck synergizes, to me, that's pretty fun. So on the fun scale, I think this is, it's fun also means you have to win with it. And I do think this deck gets wins, but I think this deck could lose too. I think it's a solid 4. I think it's a solid 4 out of 5 for the fun scale. Competitive scale, Oh, probably a 2. It's probably a 2, to be honest. It obviously still runs very good cards, and you can win a good amount of games with this. But if you're going against some tough opponents or just some tough matchups, I think your deck's going to really fold to the pressure of it. Flourish and Canal Mountain Rug and Canopy Shelter are cute cards, which means that they're fun cards, but they probably just don't hold up. So, if you want to have some fun with this deck, try it out. By trying out fun stuff is how you figure out new combos, honestly, and even figure out what cards are very good. Maybe Cadaver's Tilling is very good. We'll have to find out. All right, moving on. Next up, we have the Embodiment. So this is another Earth build deck. However, this one really is looking to make use of Barkskin Millennium Tree as well as Earth Form. Both of these cards make Embodiment of Earth tokens, and that's what we're going here. That's why we're running 9 copies, the whole rainbow package here, and Barkskin. We are also still running the Redwood, as we are pretty Earth heavy, so we can make that work fairly decently. Maybe not to the best degree, but fairly decently. We do have a lot of blue Earths in here as well. Okay, let's talk about this deck. Let's talk about the idea behind this deck. Now, this deck I made thinking about Charles Dunn's National Briar deck, which did something very similar to this. Basically made a lot of Embodiment of Earths, or it made Embodiment of Earths so that he could block very efficiently with his non-attacks, blocking for 4, and then would swing in big attacks. And that is exactly what this deck is doing, right? Now, it doesn't always make an Embodiment of Earth. As you can see, only the Earth form can do that for us. But we do have big attacks to just swing in with Cadaver's Tillings, Oak and Olds, even Felling Crown and Mangle. Plow Under, same way. So we are going to be coming in and pressuring big damage while trying to get the most efficient blocks we possibly can. So that is why we are running all these Earth forms and embodiments, so we can get our embodiments, that is. Let's talk about the rating scales. I actually do think this deck is fairly competitive for Earth build. I think this is probably about as competitive as you can get. There's probably other builds out there, but I think this is about as competitive as you get if you're going a pretty Earth heavy build. And for that reason, I think it's a 3.5, maybe even 4. I think I could solidly say 3.5 out of 5, though. I do think it's a pretty competitive deck. As far as the fun rating goes, it's probably a little less fun, to be honest. You're kind of doing one thing, but you're doing it pretty damn well. That's what good decks tend to do. And because of that, it's it's probably a little less fun. I would give it an average of 2.5 out of 5 for the fun scale. It's okay. You're gonna do cool stuff here and there, but mostly you're gonna be blocking efficiently and a big attack. And that's maybe not the most fun, but it's good. All right, next up, Pummel. All right, now this is something of a personal project of mine. I always try to make a Pummel deck. I do. Because I think Pummel is such a good card and a fun card. So let's get into this one. We are definitely running a Tunic. Anytime you're running a Pummel deck, you're probably a Tunic deck. That's just plain and simple. Command and Conquer and a Tunic on 3 with a Pummel in the arsenal, just pitching 1 blue feels so good. And in that same sense, so does Frostfang. Only costs 2, so we can pitch a blue, have a Pummel in the arsenal, and with Tunic on 3, we can play that Pummel, which feels very nice. Helps swing the tempo of the game. That is what Pummel Command and Conquer does, and that is what Frostfang Pummel will do as well. Now, next up, we have blue Pummels as well. I almost would put yellows, but I'm not that crazy. I'm trying to keep this somewhat competitive. But yeah, we are running blue Pummels as well. We have a little bit of the space for it. We are running Titan's Fist. We might not be able to consistently give it +1, but what we can do consistently is be able to pummel this if need be. So that's why we are running Titan's Fist. And we are running Titan's Fist over Antidotes because the shield's just way too good. All right, moving on. We are also having Thumps. We're running red and blues of these. This is because, again, it just works very well with Pummel, so that's what we look to do with it. It's just to use it to pummel with, and it has a good pummel curve, being 4 cost. Pitch 2 blues and be able to go Thump Pummel is not bad. We run the usual package. Every deck's going to have the Unforgetting, Unforgiving, Mangle, Oakenold, and Crumble. That's every deck. So moving on from that, we have Boulder Drop, just another Pummel target. It is a blue Pummel target, so we're probably not going to be trying to do that all too often. But we are running blue Pummels, so if we get in the late game, we're mostly blue. This could help finish the game off, or at least change the tempo to help finish the game off. Buckling Blow kind of just works with the Mangle and Unforgiving, Unforgetting sort of effect. And then like Terra Sunderer, because that's kind of, well, it's not a pummel, but you know, it does discard cards. And then we are running like Icequake, and this is because Icequake helps out Thumps. So they help to make that work out very well. Also, what they do is they, you know, you give your opponent a Frostbite, and it makes it hard for them to use a Sink Below against you, which is Pummel's greatest enemy. Yeah, that is the Pummel deck. So let's give this some ratings. Me personally, this is like a 4.5 out of 5. You know what? It really is. If I thought it was like hella competitive, I would probably also have it a 5 out of 5 for a fun rating as well. Because part of the fun is winning, right? I do think this deck gets wins, but I do think this deck can get some clunky hands. So I think that's where it's not going to be a very high competitive. But I do think it's serviceable. So I am going to give this a 3 out of 5. And that's my honest take. I really want to give it a 3.5, but I think it's probably more of a 3. So 4.5 out of 5 for the fun, 3 out of 5 for competitive. And that is our Pummel deck. All right, next up is the Icy. So we're going back to being a little icy. This is going to look very similar to our chili Jarl, but it's a little different. You can see here we are running the Ice Cap. Again, you could be running not Cornet Peak. Is it Cornet? Yeah, it is Cornet Peak. You could be running the Peak if you want to get a little bit more competitive, but otherwise this is okay. We are running Tunic, which I'm trying to figure out why. I guess there's not terrible for like Polar Blast and Cold Snaps. Okay, that's probably why. Because you could go Tectonic into this. No, I see it now. Yeah, we have stuff like Icequakes. Yep. All right, we're running Tunic for that. I swear I made these decks. I made so many, I kind of forgot each one. Anyways, moving on. Okay, so here again, we are being very, very icy. But the difference is we're not necessarily focusing on the Insidious Chill effect. We are running Insidious Chill, but we aren't running Amulet of Ice. What we are really more focusing on is giving a Frostbite to our opponent at every possible turn, or some sort of like ice effect, something like this. So that's what we're really trying to do. So with Jarl, we are going to be playing Icequakes because they do give a Frostbite effect. Also, they give us a bump. We got our Frostfangs. Again, by playing these cards, just by playing them, we get to give them a Frostbite. That's the idea. We have the Cold Snap, Polar Blast, Winter's Bites. Again, same deal. We just want to give them some Frostbites. Of course, we have the good channels. And then Buckle, because we do need that space to be destroyed so that we can have we can give Frostbites, basically. Snow Under is also used here. Again, just Frostbites. So that's really the idea behind this deck, just always giving Frostbites. Okay, let's give it a rating here. Now, Frostbites to me are fun. That's why I like ice. So for me, it's a 4 out of 5 as far as the fun level. I think I would have a lot of fun with this deck. I'm going to constantly be giving my opponents Frostbites and making their life a little harder. Out of the competitive scale, I think this deck is pretty good. My biggest concern with it is there's a lot of 2 blocks for the blues, and I know we don't necessarily block with our blues, but I'm a little concerned, to be honest. That being said, though, I do think this deck can be very good. I think if you get rid of the Snow Unders and Olin's Ice Cap for Cornet Peak and maybe just something else, maybe even Pummels, this deck I think could be a solid 4. But I think I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 for competitiveness. So 3.5 out of 5 for competitiveness and a 4 out of 5 for fun. All right, moving on. Okay, let's talk about the Aura deck. Yeah, I have tried to make this deck in so many different ways, and I am struggling. I won't lie. I've always tried to make an Aura Guardian work, and maybe Betsy's about as close as it get, but let's try it with Jarl, right? He gets some good ones. He has auras, right? Well, Yes and no. I think Colossal Bearing is kind of the big one with this deck. It kind of works with his ability to destroy equipment to give Frostbite. And we're going to be running some aura cards that are going to make Colossal Bearing work, right? Like this one giving +5 and the next one costs 1 less. So next turn this can just be a 3 cost. That's actually really good. 3 costs for 13 is so good with an on hit too. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea, is that we're really trying to maximize that strategy. Yeah, it's okay. This is probably the deck I was like least excited about. So on a fun scale, it's not very fun. I think doing this would be fun, but I'm not sure. I've never saw a good point where I'm okay taking a turn off to play an aura. Especially if it's a 3 cost. So I don't know. I'm kind of like at a 2 right now with the fun. And on the competitive scale, I'm kind of at a 2 as well. So I think this is kind of my worst one that I built. However, if you think you could build a better one, please do it. And like share that link with me. I would love to see it because I do want this to work, but I'm just a little skeptical on its reality. Okay, let's move on. All right, next up is Earthy Yl, doing another Earthy build. Now, this one is something similar to our Icy build. That the way I look at this deck is we're going to be doing a lot of Earth fusions. And so, therefore, if we are going to be Earth fusing, then I want to put the Earth card in my arsenal, right? So I need it to be a good Earth card to put in the arsenal. Well, Earth Form, that's a good card. Rootbound Carapaces in the arsenal, very good. So is Felling and Plow Under. And then, like some of our blues, like So Tomorrow, well, that's about it, I guess, really. But ideally, we're not putting blues in the Earth. That's the idea. But so, like, let's try to like have all these other Earth cards that we fuse with and put that into the arsenal. Fruits of the Forest is just a solid Earth card to have that we can help with decompose. And then Tome of the Harvest is if we did put a card we didn't really care about in our arsenal, maybe like a Fruits of the Forest, well, at least we have a way to get it out of our arsenal and draw 3 cards. So that is why we're running that card there. So yeah, basically the idea behind this deck is just attack with efficient attacks and then just be very earthy. You have a hammer that is going to always swing for 4. So in that regard, that's a good hammer. And then you are running Tunic because you are running stuff like Buckling Blow, Choke Slam, Debilitate, stuff that works very well with a Tunic counter. So Mulch, same way, very good. It's our Command and Conquer. So yeah, that is what we are looking to do with this deck. It's just be very efficient with it. Let's get into some ratings here. I think this deck is actually really solid. I think it's pretty well built. It does Guardian type things. It may be just a little light on disruption, but Felling Crowd, Plow Under, and Mulch, not terrible. And so is Chokeslam. So I actually think it's very good. At a competitiveness rating, it's probably a solid 4. It could even be a 4.5 in all honesty. I wouldn't be upset if I brought this deck to a PQ or something. Out of a fun level, I think this deck is actually fairly fun. I don't think it's anything like super, super enticing, but I do think it's fairly fun. I think I could probably fuck with this deck for a good while, and it'd be like a 3 out of 5 for me. So fun level 3 out of 5, competitive level 4, maybe even 4.5 out of 5. All right. Next up, Earthlore Bounty. Now, this is a deck that's incomplete. I need your help. I don't know. It's probably not a deck. I'm just going to say that. It probably isn't, but what if we can make it a deck? So, obviously, this is going around Earthlore Bounty. Whenever we draw a card from an action card, we create a Seismic Surge token. That's very good with big old Pulverize. We make our Pulverize cheaper. Fuck yeah. The whole idea behind this deck is that we actually have a lot of stuff that we put in our arsenal that draws cards. So we have Cold Snap, Polar Blast, So Tomorrow. That's 9 cards already that draws a card. Tome of Harvest draws us 3 cards. So we get 3 Seismic Surge tokens. That's kind of bonkers. Yeah, that's kind of the idea behind it. That's why we're running E-Strike. We're actually running Rising Power as well. It's a perfect curve if we pitch a blue to go Cold Snap into Rising Power for 7 because we've drawn a card this turn. So that actually works out very well. The biggest problem I have with this deck is just finishing it. I'm not 100% sure what I should do with the 21 more cards that like slots that we have. Certainly we could just put good cards in it and just make it a like generic good cards type deck like CNCs and maybe Frostfangs or something like that. But I'm not 100% sure. I like synergy type decks, and if we're building a deck around Earthlore Bounty, let's go synergistic. Oh yeah, one more cool kind of, well, not cool, but you know, it's synergistic. We get to run High Riser. It actually could get some pluses. This deck's like a 1 on the competitive scale. On the fun scale, I think I would have fun playing it like once, like for one armory basically. Because I don't think I'm winning too much. Now, if I do start winning, I would have a lot more fun. I'd give it a solid 4. If I start winning, it could be a 4.5, but I can see me having fun with it. But it's not even complete, so these ratings are kind of, they're kind of nonsense. So we're actually going to take the rating system out on this one. Take that out. But I don't know. Cool, cool cards. Cool deck idea. All right, next up, anti-equipment. All right, well, if we know anything about Jarl, he hates equipment. All right, he wants them gone. So we're basically just capitalizing on that. This is just running, red and blues, buckling blows, mangles. Obviously, his other card here, Unforgetting, Unforgiving. Just anything that could blow up equipment, expose the elements. We'll run that main board. Fuck it. Fuck it. We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Exposed to elements, that's definitely something we're going to be just running. It's just an anti-type equipment type deck. I don't think it's bad by any means. I actually think it works fairly well. I am running the... You know what? I think I built this... Well, I don't think I ever changed the weapon. I think I'm actually would go... the new weapon in this. Put that in the maybe. I think that's probably where we go. I just don't think Titan Fist gets 3 attack very often in this build, or 4 attack very often. So I think we have to go that way. But yeah, I think this deck is solid. Let's give it some ratings here. So out of the competitive rating, I don't think there's anything that like this deck shows that makes it super weak, other than maybe exposed elements it's made. Most of the other stuff in this deck is pretty solid. Like, we do run a lot of blue ice cards that block for 2, but that's mostly because if we are destroying equipments, we do want to run cards that will put Frostbite in our opponent's equipment zones. So honestly, I think it's probably a 3.5 out of 5 competitiveness. It might even be a 4, honestly. It might just be super solid. It's just kind of hard for me to see that, but it might be there. Out of the fun scale, probably a 3.5 there as well. I could see me having fun, but I don't know how well this deck is going to consistently work. I mean, maybe it gets a little clunky. Maybe you see all the, all of this stuff early, but like the destroying equipment part late, and maybe that's not fun. So I don't know. I think it's a 3.5 on both rating, competitive and fun. So I think it's actually a very good deck. It's very solid. All right, moving on. Real quick. Running Tectonic Plating. You can kind of run whatever chess piece you want this. There's not a big reason to go Tunic here. Like, I guess you could for like the Polar Blast and Cold Snaps, but that's kind of it. Like, we're not running Pummel, so yeah, that's my idea there. Okay. All right, next up is Guardian. All right, so we are Guardian, all right? I don't know if you could tell, but we have a lot of Guardian cards here. A lot of cards that are just blocking for 3. Titan's Fist is big here. Damn, I went the whole way with the equipments. Hold on. I usually don't put this much equipments in, but I guess I did here. So I even have a sideboard. All right. This deck is kind of cooking, I guess. Anyways, the Guardian package is just very Guardian heavy, basically. The idea behind this deck is what if we took the Pro Tour winning deck that Michael Fang had in Baltimore when he was playing Oldham? What if we took that deck and just Jarlified it? And that's kind of what we get here. And so I do think this is a very solid competitive deck because it has put up results. And I don't think there's anything to say that it won't continue to put up results. When you have a deck that can run Zealous Belting and feel good about it, right? Then yeah, you have Zealous Belting, Line Strike, and Rouse the Ancients. You're going to be good into some of your bad matchups like Illusions. You're not going to be able to necessarily make that a favorable matchup, but you'll be much better into it, as well as like Wizards. So honestly, this deck I actually think is very competitive. I would probably give it a 4.5. Now, if we're looking at it, is it doing Jarl type stuff? No, it's not. It's pretty lame. We could do Oakenold with like these cards right here, and that's fun. But like past that, we're just a stupid big old Guardian. Which is like, obviously that's fine. That works. So honestly, probably just give it a solid 2.5 out of the fun rating. It'll get the job done, and winning is fun. And I think that's about it where we're at with it. So yeah, 2.5 seems right. But it is very competitive. Probably 4.5, honestly. Probably will do you just fine. It'll probably win you an armory, and it'll probably get you top 8 at PQ. Maybe even win it. All right, moving on. We have one more build. And this is the Elemental build. All right, so the idea behind this deck is let's make a deck that is even on the ice and even on the earth, basically making it an Oakenold sort of deck. That's why the equipment, you see a good mixture here. And then with the all the cards involved here, it's just a lot of earth and ice. Barely any Guardian cards, only like a few, right? This deck is going to feel like Arya. Deck is going to feel like you're, a part of the elements. Absolutely. And for me, that's going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy doing that. This deck isn't doing anything necessarily busted or synergistic. It's just having fun. It's just having fun being an elemental sort of deck. So let's get into the ratings of it. I mean, yeah, there's nothing like that's too different than other decks out there. So the ratings of this deck, as a competitive deck, I think it'll be okay. The reds look good to me. The blues are a little bit on the weaker side. That is why we have Barksian, though, but a little bit on the weaker side. So I might be a little hesitant to give it a higher rating on that. But I would give it a solid, maybe 3.5. Maybe a 3.5. Let me look at this again here. I'd give it probably a 3. If it starts winning, definitely it gets bumped up to a 3.5. But yeah, it looks like a very solid deck. I'm just not sure how solid it can remain and how it can like continue to function. But it wouldn't surprise me if this deck actually works out very well. And now the fun rating, I think this is a fun deck. I think this is a solid 3.5 there. So, fuck it. We'll just say both ratings are 3.5. 3.5 competitive, 3.5 fun. So there it is. Now, if you are still watching, I have one more deck. This is my competitive Jarl deck. This is what I will be playing week 1. If you're interested in this deck, I will definitely show you if you're a Patreon. I'm so sorry, but that's what I got to give my Patreons something that's a little different than everything else. So this is the deck. I'll show it. And I will go into big detail on like what I'm doing for matchups and sideboarding and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that, let's look at it together on our Patreon. But besides that, that is the Jarl decks. Obviously, there's so many decks to work with. I'm gonna have fun with all of them. I think just keep trying them out. If you're interested in some budget Jarl decks, we got a video of that coming, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, this is the Jarl section. So until next time, guys, keep on fabbing.